Hi, welcome into the Cat's Cave, the place for all of the thought daughters and two woke friends to gather as I yap about pop culture and media and why it actually is that deep. Reminder that this is meant to be a starter of a conversation, not the end of one. If you have any thoughts or disagreements, I encourage you to leave them in the comments and let us continue the conversation down there. Today I'm talking about Gossip Girl and why I think it is way more than just a teen soap opera, but rather a critique on billionaires, capitalists, and society's obsession with rich people. I want to preface this whole video by saying that despite the fact that in a second I'm going to be talking about why I do think that Gossip Girl is actually a really well written show, I'm not going to sit here and act like everything was meticulously planned out and on purpose. I don't know, maybe it was. But rather than focusing on whether it's intentional or not, I think it's important for us to look at the messages it is sending and what we can get from them. For those of you who don't know what Gossip Girl is, it's a melodramatic TV show that aired from 2007 to 2012, and it follows a core group of teenagers and their families as they navigate the world of the Upper East Side of Manhattan. We have Blair Waldorf, Serena Vanderwoodson, Chuck Bass, and Nate Archibald as the main rich kids who came from multimillionaire and billionaire families. Then we have Dan and his little sister, Jenny Humphrey, who were the middle class, poor kids from Brooklyn who attended the same expensive private school as everyone else. I put poor in air quotes because although the Humphreys are meant to be the poor family, throughout the show it is clear that they are upper middle class at worst. They are the poorest kids that go to that school, but they are far from your average American middle or lower class family. Before we get into me breaking down why I think this is a critique on capitalists and billionaires, I want to take a second to shout out the writing. I know that a lot of times it's viewed as like any old teen drama, but I don't think that that's very fair to the writers. And as a theater major who loves story writing, I wanted to just kind of take a second to appreciate it. A brief history lesson, but I promise it is important. Gossip Girl is a melodrama, and melodramas originated in the late 18th century, early 19th century, post French Revolution. It came at a time where the working class was starting to gain a lot more power, and they wanted theater too. Before this, theater was like mostly consumed by upper class, highly educated people. And so when the working class started having a desire for theater, they weren't as literate and wanted a lot less complex or hard to understand highbrow plays. And this is where melodrama came in and kind of filled this void. They did so by using more simplistic or one note characters and archetypes with very easily understandable plots and messages that could be comprehended by the masses. Gossip Girl uses the same conventions that were used in the origins of melodrama, and I would say pretty well and for their original purpose. There's no argument here that Gossip Girl is super dramatic and over the top at times, maybe all of the time. But that's kind of the point. Sometimes these characters do come across as ridiculous caricatures of rich kids, but that's the goal. It's meant to be entertaining, yes. For sure, it's a TV show. Of course, they want to be entertaining. But it's also meant to shed a light on this world and the immortality of it. I actually would like to take back that word of meant to because, again, as I previously discussed, I don't know what all of this was intentional, but I think that the conventions they used and the writing that they used definitely assisted in this messaging being easily understandable. Throughout the series, Dan is meant to be this everyman character. He represents the 99%, everyone but these super rich people. And he is constantly treated as a second class citizen and an outsider to the entire world of the Upper East Side. As he gets more involved with the group, he is able to be the one that can pull back this curtain of the inner workings of this world. Throughout the show, we constantly see him saying that he doesn't care about this world or fitting in, and actually despises it. He constantly it has this narrative of I'm better than these people. He passes judgment onto characters like Blair and Chuck and their immoral actions and schemes. However, as the show continues on, we see him befriend a lot of people in this world and end up doing a lot of morally questionable things to succeed. He even ends up teaming up with Blair and Chuck to pull off schemes at times. He does a lot of things that we would consider to be out of character for him, specifically season one him, to gain these drops of respect and status in a world that he claims he doesn't care about. I think that this character is a good example of what can happen to everyday people in a capitalist society, one that puts money and success over everything. You can't succeed in a so called free market society without clawing and stepping on people. Even the most moral of us can be swept up in the seduction of power and money. And we see this with a character like Vanessa Abrams, who I haven't yet mentioned. She comes in later, and she's Dan's friend who used to live in Brooklyn, moved away, and just now moved back. She grew up in a commune with her parents who are so heavily against everything that the Upper East Side stands for and capitalism as a whole, and are very vocal about this when they do make their few appearances on the show. And Vanessa is the same way. She is an activist. She works to support herself. She doesn't live with her parents anymore, even though she's still in high school, and has to homeschool herself to be able to have a job. She is the exact opposite of everything that these kids from the Upper East Side are. And she's very vocal about her distaste of Dan's new friends and who Dan has become when she gets into the show. However, as the show continues on and she gets more involved with this world, we see her do a lot of things that would previously have been considered out of character for her. She schemes and lies and cheats to get ahead, just like everyone else who she claims to hate. It actually gets to a point where she ends up removing herself from the situation and moving away because she's gotten to a point where she can't recognize herself, but not before doing a lot of morally questionable things to get what she wants and to try to succeed. Again, we see what happens to a person when they are put in a world that places success and power and money over morals. A mindset I would argue is pretty inescapable in a capitalist society. Dan and Vanessa are a great critique of the moral failures that are tied to and required by a capitalist society. The if you want to be successful, you can't be afraid to step on toes mindset requires some level of amoral or immoral actions. Now, for the anti-billionaire sentiment, I want to focus on the rich kids. We have Blair Waldorf, Serena Vanderwoodson, Nate Archibald, and Chuck Bass. For the majority of what I'm going to be talking about in this section, Nate Archibald doesn't really fit the mold. We see in the very beginning his family has this massive fall from grace in society. His father is arrested for fraud and embezzlement, and they lose all of their money. At one point, Nate is even homeless and squatting in his old house. I think this teaches Nate a lot about the privileges he has, and so even when he gets his money back, he never really falls into the same categories as the rest who haven't had money troubles a day in their life. Although he definitely doesn't stay perfectly clean, I think it is clear that he has a different outlook than the rest, and this dictates his behavior. Blair, Serena, and Chuck, however, are perfect examples of my next point, which is this show shows how much rich people suck. These characters are seen time and time again to be doing horrible things, morally bad things to anybody and everybody. The people they are supposed to care about, family, friends, romantic relationships, nobody is safe from their actions. All of this is because their entire worldview has been shaped around money and power. It's all they know. They have no sense of reality or what a real relationship should be. They only know transactional relationships. So even when they get real relationships, they don't know how to behave properly in them. And this is because their entire worldview has been clouded by money and status. Their entire life, since birth, that's all they've known. I think this shows how bad you have to be if you want to become, or in the kids' cases, stay successful in a society that puts power and status over everything. This whole idea of there is no such thing as an ethical billionaire is true. In a capitalist society, there is no way to succeed, especially to that level, without having to have made some morally questionable decisions along the way. And in Gossip Girl, we see this with the teenagers' families. The families are just as bad, if not sometimes worse, than the kids. Chuck Bass's father, Bart Bass, is the richest character in the entire show. And he is also the most immoral and cruel character. We see it time and time again, how he treats his own son, the schemes he pulls, ruining other people's lives. I think this show does a great job of shining a light on this and the inner workings of this world, even if it is dramatized for entertainment. We know that things like this and worse happen all of the time in the real world. Gossip Girl shows us that these are not people that we should be respecting and aspiring to be and think should run everything. They are bad people. In order to be that successful, they have to be bad people. And I think that that is something that we as a society are starting to wake up to a lot more. We're starting to understand the immorality of billionaires. But if we take into consideration the time in which Gossip Girl came out, I think the message is even more profound. It came out in 2007. That was like peak Paris Hilton fame. Kim Kardashian was starting to get famous. All of these socialites from uber rich families were being put in the limelight and praised and seen as role models for a lot of young girls. They wanted the glitz and glamour. Then a show like Gossip Girl came around. A show whose target demographic was shared by these same socialites. And they showed that this glitz and glamour, it comes at a price. And it's not pretty. These people, they're not role models. And a world of money and power is not one that has a place for morals. Okay, y'all, I wanted to end this video on a much more fun note. And at the end of the day, Gossip Girl is still one of my favorite TV shows. So I thought that I would give my personal ranking of the characters from most favorite to least favorite. And disclaimer, this has nothing to do with morality. Actually, a lot of the most immoral characters are kind of my top favorites for reasons I'll explain later. But it's kind of just a fangirl ranking her favorite characters off of general vibe. Okay, y'all, editing me here. For pretty much this entire next section, I think I just have the mic too close to my mouth or something. And so it kind of has this weird, like, fuzz. I'm really sorry. I'm still getting used to this. So please just ignore that. It's not, like, terrible, but it's definitely something I needed to note. For first place, I gotta give it to Rufus Humphrey. I love that man. And every time he is on screen, his performance, it captivates me. He is by far the best actor in that series, in my opinion. Number 2 is Chuck Bass. I think he is one of the best written and well-rounded characters in the whole show. And although he's a terrible person overall, especially in the beginning seasons, he does kind of get it together in the end. Like, he definitely makes a switch. In third place, I have Blair. She's just awesome. Like, she's not morally awesome. But as a character, she's so bad that it's good. In most of her fights with Serena, I was 1000% on her side. Because as you're going to see, I'm not a big Serena fan. Her aesthetic, too, I love it. It's never one that I would be able to pull off, but I love it. And the actress, Leighton, I can't remember how to pronounce her last name, gorgeous, stunning woman. Still is to this day. In fourth place, I have Nate. He is the hottest guy in the show, in my opinion. But he's also the kindest. Like I had said in my little spiel, I think that his like outlook really was shaped by his troubled time that happened when his dad got arrested. But even before that, we can see glimpses of him being a pretty kind guy. Like he's a nice dude, and not like a nice guy, but an actual genuinely nice dude. And he's also just the hottest. What can I say? And fifth place, I have Lily. I think she is very underrated. I think her whole like backstory and her relationship with her mom, like that gives a lot of context to how she acts. And again, she is also just gorgeous. In sixth place, I have Eric because he's gay. He's gay and he's awesome. No, actually, genuinely, he is one of the most level-headed characters. He is one of the youngest, might be the youngest. But the amount of times there have been situations where the adults are losing their minds and doing all of the wrong choices, and Eric's over there going, guys, lock in. What are we doing? You cannot. This is unacceptable. Okay, now we've kind of moved on to the bad characters, the characters that I more dislike than like. And in seventh place, we have Vanessa. At least she kind of had the right idea, especially in the beginning. She had a lot of the right ideas, things I can get behind. Like, she wasn't a fan of the rich. She thought that they were elitist, and she was an activist, environmental activist, hated the gentrification. Like, she had it. But she was so annoying. And she was like what I imagine right-wing people think woke people are like, in the way that she was so annoying. She had the right ideas, but she was insufferable about it. And also just her general personality was insufferable because she kind of abandons those ideas later on and she stays insufferable. In number 8, we have Serena. Serena. She is so annoying and never once could take responsibility for her own actions. She never, ever, ever thought anything was ever her fault. Girl, you did it to yourself 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10, her problems were done to her by herself. You want to know who your worst enemy is? Look in the mirror. In 9th, we have Jenny. The reason she's so low is because she's obnoxious. And she was so disrespectful to Rufus, who we've already established I love and cherish and hold deep in my heart. But her only credit, the reason that she's 9th and not 10th, is because at least she didn't try to pretend to be someone she wasn't. She knew that she cared about that world and that she was a social climbing crazy person. She did. She knew that she was a bad daughter and she didn't care. And at least you knew. And you didn't try to pretend like you were better than everyone else. Which leads me to number 10. Dan. Do I even need to say it? The most pretentious, like, chip on his shoulder dude. Especially in the later seasons, he ends up being worse than the main characters and still trying to keep this, like, air of I'm better than you, holier than thou. No, you're not. And I don't want to say, just in case someone's watching this that hasn't finished Gossip Girl, but, like, the people that have, you know what I'm thinking right now. You're crazy. You're a crazy person. You're a crazy person. Speaking of crazy people, I have in 11th place, even though she wasn't a main character, I had to throw her in, Georgina Sparks. Oh my God. Go straight to hell. Go straight to hell. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You are the most insane person I've ever met. The thing is at least most of the time, when the other people were doing their schemes and crazy lies and things, like, they had a purpose, they had a reason. Georgina's only ever, like, reason for her actions were, because I wanted to. Because it seemed fun. Like, she would do the most crazy, insane things, and then it would be like, why'd you do that? Seemed fun. You're a crazy person that needs to be put in a mental institution. But anyway, that's my ranking. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to my first video. I hope to be writing a lot more and posting a lot more, but I'm also moving out of this apartment, so I don't know what my next background is going to look like. But yes, reminder to keep the conversation going in the comments. I know that these are my own takes, and I will not be offended if you completely disagree and you go, girl, what are you talking about? None of that made sense. Please tell me what you think. I want to know. Also, my roommate actually posted something that made me think of the surveillance state we live in, and I think that I could possibly do a part 2 on Gossip Girl and how it's Big Brother and how we are in a surveillance state right now. So I was gonna include a little excerpt into this one, but I didn't really know how I'd fit. So I might do a part 2 on that later. I have more things that I want to do before then. But yeah, keep the conversation going in the comments. Thank y'all so much for tuning in, and see y'all later. Mwah.